Everyone, and welcome to episode 106 of the All in Football Fantasy Premier League show and podcast. I'm your host, the self-proclaimed FPL guru, Alex Rex, and joining me today are my usual suspects, Scott Williams and Barry Stokes, alongside our FPL All in Football Podcast League champion, Ally Farrell. Ally, how are you?
Very good, thank you. Great to be here to collect a trophy and my cash prize, whatever that is.
Everyone tells me I need to get like a merch shop and get something created. Ideas on a postcard. You let me know if you want a hoodie. Barry, where in the world are you today?
South Coast. I was out celebrating with the Southampton lads the other day, and also celebrating my cup win as well. And I pulled my back out, trying to lift it up as well. So I've got a coot back sprain. So yeah, that's not good. But
no. What a nice sick brag and a way to rip all of our Leeds fan listeners. Well done, Baz. Scott, nice fresh trim, ready for your holiday tomorrow, getting off to do some warm weather training.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, been out of action for about 6-7 weeks now, so need to get some warm weather training in Spain. So a week on that, and then I'll be back raring to go.
Great stuff. Well, thank you ever so much for everyone for tuning in, and don't forget to like the video on YouTube and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Don't forget to give us 5 stars wherever you get your podcast from, and follow us on social media platforms, All in Football Pod, All in Football P, Twitter, Instagram, and on TikTok. Right, let's do some housekeeping first of all and start off with our manager of the week for game week 38. And it would not be a FPL season, I don't think, if we didn't round it off with Nicola Tomlinson being manager of the week. What a week. 96 points, and you did it all without Mateta, which is incredible work from you. Jose Sarr, Pedro Porro, Ruben Diaz, Saliba, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Salah, Palmer, Foden captain, that was the one, Brennan Johnson, Hoyland, and Chris Wood. Well done to Nicola. I don't know how many Manager of the Week awards that is, but it's got to be 3, I think, this season, something like that. She's done fantastically well intermittently this season with some great weeks. Actually, it's got to be said. Need to cover off as well Manager of the Month for May. Big shout out to Jack Lewis with Eze Work, still one of my favourite names in the league. 93 points in game week 38. Friend of the podcast, Guy Ferguson, in second place. Well done to you, Guy. All those differentials getting you up to second for Manager of the Month of May. And our champion right here, one of the reasons why he won the league in the end, beating Richard Kirk on the last day, a dramatic last day. Ally Farrell in third place. But we'll get to that. We'll get to that in a second, Ali. We'll get to that in a second because I need to give a shout out to the other managers of the month for the season. So joining Jack Lewis, Richard Kirk, James Stevens, Nikola Vasovic, Sandeep Unjan. Unfortunately, I've got to shout you out, Sandeep. Marco, Nicola Tomlinson, of course, with your Manager of the Month award, Martin Wheel, Jamie Rhodes, and back in the day, all the way back in August, was Will Hughes. That does feel like going back a long way, that doesn't it? When he at the start of the season. Hopefully, you'll enjoy these. So I've got some statistics from the season. We had, and there's a bit of a Q&A to go on here, lads. Bit of a see how much you know about your FPL trivia. Nice close up, Scott. We had our first £14 million player in a decade, and obviously that was Erling Haaland. Can either of you three name the other 3 players in FPL history that have been £14 million? I'll give you a hint. One was a striker in the 06-07, so they were all strikers. 06-07 season, 08-09 season, and then the 13-14 season. Anyone want to have a guess?
Can we have a guess each?
Yeah, of course you can. Let's start with you then, Scott. You're obviously keen to go.
Yeah, I go for Aguero.
Incorrect. Aguero is wrong. Baz?
Thierry Henry.
Henry was one in the 06-07 season, Thierry Henry. Ali?
You nick my guess. What's your name? What's your man from Liverpool?
Mr. Salah, by any chance?
Torres.
I'm thinking Torres. I'm thinking Torres, yeah.
No, Fernando Torres was not one of them. Scott, we'll go back round to you again.
What years we got left?
Both of them were Manchester United players. 08-09 and 13-14.
Okay, Rooney, 08-09?
Nope, not Rooney.
No.
We're missing a Ballon d'Or winner.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, Ronaldo.
Ronaldo in the 08-09 season, and a Manchester United striker who was a terrible performer in this season, 13-14, but obviously did really well for them when they won the league in 12-13.
Oh, RVP.
RVP, Robin Van Persie. So those were the £14 million players. That's Haaland's first in a decade. But he still had the highest player ownership ever in game week 6, when he was owned by 92.6% of the game, which also equated to the highest ever captaincy ever in game week 6. He was captained by 82% of the 10.8 million managers in game week 6. How crazy is that? That's a big number. Whose triple captain record did he beat from the 21-22 season, when they had a double game week against Leeds and Norwich, both home fixtures?
Don't remind me. Salah.
Mo.
Oh, is it not Salah?
It is. No, it is Mo. Mo Salah.
Oh, I was going to say,
not
I thought you said
Mo.
no. All right.
How many points?
I captained Robinson. Just for free.
Oh, Baz's signal's terrible, by the way. Premier in. He needs to upgrade his business account, doesn't he? 28 points he got that week as well. So compared to Haaland's 10. We had the most free hits ever in game week 29. That worked out for everyone not. 1.7 million of them. And double game week 37 was the highest ever chip usage in a game week of 2.38 million chips in use at that time. Really interestingly, 110 million transfers were made in the last 10 weeks of the season. And that averages out that if everybody who was playing the game made transfers, that means that each person made on average 1 transfer a week who was playing. So it just shows how many active players there still were in the game later on. And it's definitely making the game more competitive and tougher. More people are engaged, more content, and more people are playing all the way to the end. I do also think that the cup competition really helps that. I think it reignites a lot of people's interest in fantasy. So I found that stat quite interesting. We had the best value FPL player ever in terms of points per million this season with Cole Palmer. Started at 5 million. He actually went down in value because he didn't get his first start until game week 7, and then ended up at 6.3 million. Do we know which player he beat out who was the previous best value player? He started at 5.5 million. He ended at 7.2 million, and he was a midfielder.
Leeds United?
It's not Leeds United. It was from the 15-16 season, legendary season of Leicester winning the league. Maybe that will help.
Mahrez.
Riyad Mahrez. He was the best value player.
Yeah. I suppose he was brand new to the club, wasn't he? No one knew anything from him when he signed from.
Can't remember where he was from, to be fair. Yeah, but 3.3. The other player this season who did really well in terms of points per million ended up being Mateta. He was the next best value actually in the game, and he had the top score of the season, double game week score, and 29 points in game week 34. And Mo Salah with 7 seasons in a row of 200 plus points, which is insane. Like the next best, I think, is 3 or 4 seasons in a row, and it's Henry and Lampard. They're tied. I think it's 4 seasons. Like, he is an FPL. He's FPL royalty, absolute FPL king. League stats, people might be interested in. Most ever goals in a Premier League season, 1,246. Most header goals ever, off the least amount of crosses ever per game. Crazy, isn't it? Least amount of direct free kick goals. Best shot accuracy in history in the Premier League, and the best return from English players since 02-03, with 369 goals from English players. We had 112 goals scored in stoppage time, which is 9% of all goals. So that's a record, and no surprise because we had all the extra injury time this season that made all the changes. I won't forget, as a Man United fan, leading Chelsea 3-2 after 99 minutes, and in minute 100 we were losing 4-3. Thanks, Cole Palmer. 149 goals from 59 goals from substitutes, and the counter attack was a big thing with the fastest breaks. And the lowest ever points total to stay up, Nottingham Forest with 32 points. They'd have only needed 27, and Sheffield United with the worst goals conceded, 104. Scott, what was it the weakest group of promoted teams in history, or are we being too harsh? The stats seem to say yes, but are we being too harsh?
I think on paper, Like when you look at the three teams that come up, I think a lot of people thought they would struggle and come back down. I think, if not, most people thought Burnley may have a chance. Obviously, you forget they got like over 100 points when they got promoted. They absolutely routed the championship. But yeah, I mean, I've been saying to all my Leeds colleagues that the league next season for them in the championship is one of the weakest, and that's because the three teams coming down are so weak for me. So that's obviously something a bit different, different conversation. But yeah, it was they were weak, but at the same time, I'd have loved for one of them to stay up and Forest to go down, because I hate Nottingham Forest.
It would have been nice for Luton to have survived. They were the only team I was really bothered about. Takes us on to you, Ally. Congratulations on winning the league. How does it feel to be the champion of the the biggest? I mean, I know you got married at the back end last year, but during this season, but is this achievement bigger? Does it feel better?
My wife is delighted. All those hours of Saturday mornings have come to fruition. It's good. I'm chuffed, especially given it was a final day drama. And I think it just came down to him not captaining, or not. No, he put Isaac on his bench, and that was basically what did him. I think he had it in the bag. Other than that,
yeah, he really did. And
shows how one benching decision can change everything.
It was. He decided to start Nicholas Jackson and Bruno Fernandes. I think that was actually the one. I think Isak was quite tough because Jackson was in decent form. The starting of Bruno over Isak, when I looked at his team, I thought, I'm not sure how I feel about, because I didn't think Bruno would play 90, to be honest. I mean, I think he did. Because we were coming back from an injury, we had the cup final to go. So I was like, I would not have played Bruno in that game. And Isak decided to.
As never trust Man United, especially such a big day. So.
No, except for if we were playing at Wembley against City, but we won't talk about that. I had my day on Saturday, which was very, very nice to watch it. Says Villa on here, and as a fan, is John McGinn's chin? Is that because I'm sure you're a Hibs fan, aren't you?
I'm a Hibs fan, and so I don't really have an English team, but Villa technically are purely because John McGinn. If he signs for United, I'll then have to be a United fan as well. But yeah. I'm sort of a John McGinn fan first and foremost.
What's your background in terms of football and FPL then? Because I looked at your 5th season playing FPL last season, 146k.
I'd say last season's the first season I really put any effort in. Because I'm a Hibs fan, so Scottish football is my thing, and I'd say more obsessed and put more time into Scottish Fantasy League, which is far more fun. So my FPL is now my way of keeping more up to date with the Premier League, because otherwise I just focus fully on Scottish football as my one true love. So yeah, it's about a second year of actually putting effort in, or wasting my life away, depending on how you look at it.
Definitely both. And so how did Hibs get on this season? I don't even know where they finished.
We sacked 2 managers. So that's all you need to know. We finished 8th in the end, I think, which meaningless.
What managers did you stack? I'm pretty sure one of them was one of our old boys. Do you have Alexander?
No, we had Lee Johnson, formerly of Bristol and Sunderland, who is basically David Brent, football manager. And then great entertainment, but dreadful football manager. And then Nick Montgomery, who's a former Sheffield player who we took a punt on from Australia. He won the league there and was sacked within about 5 months. So not great, but that's what we expect. But it's all about the Euros now for Scotland. We forget about the league season.
Yeah, I think so. It's exciting that actually for you. I'm like, whilst you've touched on that, how do you think you'll get on? You've got Super Scott McTominay, so you're going to do well.
Scott McTominay's our striker somehow de facto, but I think it'll be a glorious failure. I reckon we've got Germany on opening day. We're going to get battered. Germany are now good again, and Switzerland and Hungary will probably get a point. We'll probably have an incredible performance and only get a point, and then get beat by Hungary in the last game or something. But it's all about the taking part for us. So just happy to be involved for once.
Yeah, no, you've done really well to be involved. Unlike your other person on this podcast's nation. Sorry, Barry, to bring up Wales again. Poor Dan James missing that. Missed the penalty, didn't he? That was in the shootout. Anyway, but at least you're taking part, Ali, which is which is all good. In terms of FPL season, so 27 green arrows, 11 red arrows, so a bit of a mixed bag. But you between game week 12 and game week 33, you had 18 green arrows and 4 reds, because 3 of those red arrows came in game week 2, 4, and 5. So you had, 3 of your red arrows quite early on. Where do you think? At what point in the season did you actually go, crikey, I think I'm going to beat Callum, and then also potentially win the league?
It was the main priority all along. I look back at this. I think it was game week 20 is when my rank shot up, I think, from like was on like 124,000 to about 68 or something, like cut in half.
Yeah.
And then it just kept climbing from there. So I think it was around about there when I actually started to take it seriously. I was like, all right, I actually might have a decent season coming on now. I think that week, that game week 20 was like an Areola 11-pointer, which is a freak sort of thing. And then Palmer was starting to get good. And I think I was on him early. He got 18 points stuff. So I think it was sort of midway through the season when my rank just started to consistently climb.
97 points that game week. You were 162k in the world out of 11 million. So you had a phenomenal game week, because anytime realistically you're in the top million in the world, because people will play chips and people do whatever they want every week. It's a good game week. 162 is fantastic. So that being a moment that's probably propelled you to success, in the 2 seasons that you've played FPL, what would you say are the biggest lessons that you've learned that we can take away? Because we all want to win the league.
Never signed Darwin Núñez. It's a good one, I'd say. I actually learned that last season, and for some reason I got sucked in again. That's just next year. He's not coming near my team. He promises so much and then always lets you down. It's even worse when you're watching those games live as well. It's just awful. And then I think play with the captaincy more would be, especially because last season was obviously all about Hala, and this season we sort of had a chance to go off on a couple of occasions. But I think next season, I think the only way you can make those small gains, is by playing around with your captaincy and going off Hala and then taking a punt. Now, it's a massive risk, but I think that's the way to get, because your team is going to be pretty much the same as a lot of those people in the top 100k. So that's how you make those gains, I think, is in the captaincy.
It's about, I think I said this last season, it's something that I'm really keen on. And to be fair, it kicked me square in the nuts at the beginning of last season, going away from Haaland. I was trying to make small gains by going for differential captains when I thought it was the right time, and I just got it totally wrong. So I think that's the big thing about that. That's how you can probably win, but it's also how you can lose it very, very, very quickly. And it ended my season by game week 8 last year to do that. But also, I was the best manager in the whole of our league in the second half of last season after the World Cup. And that was by taking a small little change. So I completely agree with that. I think it's a great tip. And in terms of your captaincy points, you were the best out of all of us, 566 captaincy points. You had a 61% success rate with your captaincy. I've got to come to you, Scott, though, because we had this same conversation last season. You were the best out of us in terms of your captain picks as well last season. And you were, in terms of actual percentages, you were only just behind the world number 1 in terms of success rate for your captaincy. You got 69%, you got 66%. So what works for you?
It's just good ball knowledge, isn't it? Just knowing football. That's the only thing. That's the only bit of skill in the game. Everything else is luck. So, I don't really know. I've done all right in captaincy, like you say, last couple. I think to touch on Ali's point there, look, to win our league, and I'm sure Ali's won other leagues that he's in as well this season, you need to get luck as well. And when Ali's gone away, and captain someone else, his players perform, and it's been a good week. You're not going to win the league unless you get a bit of luck, like you say. He's made some good choices there. But I think to be quite consistent with it is to not do anything drastic. So for me, it's like I always like home fixtures as well, and it is just having that bit of ball knowledge. Okay, we touched on the early kickoff on a Saturday. I don't like captains in the early kickoff on a Saturday, especially if they've played midweek in the Champions League. So actually, if Haaland's away at Fulham, I don't love that as a fixture. I would rather go for someone at home at 3 o'clock, Palmer at home to to Burnley, someone like that. So I think it's looking at the fixtures a little bit as well. Having that, did they play midweek? Did they not? And form, you can never go away from form. One of the reasons Ally's won the league is, like he said, he jumped on Palmer early. And I think you've captained them quite a few times as well, from what we've talked about on the pod. So actually, if they're on form, back him. And what I didn't do enough is actually Haaland was on pretty crappy form quite a lot, and I didn't go away from actually being worried about Haaland returning. He did towards the end of the season. Obviously, he got some really big holes towards the end of the season, but if you watch football, have a look at him. Is he playing well or not? So for me, I think I've done well because I am a big advocate of the fixtures. And I think a lot of the time where I've gone away from Haaland has been that early Saturday fixture.
Other interesting point I wanted to ask you about, Ali, on these statistics was that you had the lowest amount of auto sub points, but you also had the lowest amount of points left on your bench. So you had 29 points from your substitutes come on when you had players that didn't play. But you only left 194 on the bench. So I kind of expected your number to be higher, the points you'd left on the bench, because you had less points coming off your bench. But actually, what's transpired is it feels like you've tended to play this season with quite a weak bench. It feels that way. Is that a tactic that you've deployed this season?
No, I don't think so. It was more. I think it was more by accident, to be honest, because I ended up with, I can't remember who it was. Someone who was injured. I think it's Lamptey or something like that. That had injured for ages, and you have other fires to put out, which means you're never going to go to the bench. And so my bench ended up being dreadful, other than like my main number one sub. And so I think that's why. I think I had a couple of occasions where I didn't have the funds to move an injured player out, so just left him there to rot on the bench. But yeah, I don't think there's any sort of more reason to that.
It's interesting because I think, and I know, Barry, we're quite similar in that sense. We kind of get an injury to a player and we go, we've got to get rid of them now. You know, we have this feeling of that's my transfer this week. And actually, that doesn't need to be the priority. That's definitely a lesson I've taken from this season, because I've almost been blinking and blinded by the fact that because we've had so many injuries. I mean, we've definitely had a lot of injuries as fantasy players this season. It's been a constant conversation, hasn't it, Barry? But is that something that you maybe have taken away from this season, Baz, as well? Because I know that's something I have from just looking at these statistics.
Kind of, yeah. And I think the tactic of going all out gun ho didn't really help as well, because I had a football in lineup and I went really cheap in defence. Thought I'll give it a go for the last couple of weeks. So that obviously hasn't helped with obviously my plans that I had in place. But the main one that I'll take is when injuries did it the worst times, I changed my tactics. Should have gone.
You're cutting out, Barry. Sorry, mate. You're cutting out. I can't understand what you're saying.
Should have basically changed tactic and gone, instead of bench boosting at the time I did, I should have done a hit and then used my bench boost later on. But my wild card, I set it up like that, and I died by the sword.
Don't worry, we'll get to chips in a minute. I think that's key. But yeah, noticeably, Barry went for a really strong front eight players on the wild card and ended up stacking up the bench points towards the end of the season because the first sub wasn't coming on. And I was just going to say as well, because you've had a lack of points coming off the bench, which normally means, and you've had the most points out of all of us from just minutes played this season. So again, the other thing I will ask is it a conscious effort for you to pick players that are just going to start every week? Is that top of one of the things that's top of your list when you're looking at transfers, Ali?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's trying to think what everyone else around you is going to be doing, and so you have to go for the points. You obviously think long term. When it comes to random injuries at the end of a bench, the priority is who's on the starting lineup, and just leave the bench for another week, basically, if I have two transfers free. But yeah, it's always about the starting lineup. To be honest, I rarely even think about my first sub, unless someone's not is going to be left on the bench, there's a chance they're not going to get started by Pep or someone.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, isn't it, with Pep? One statistic that stood out massively with what you've done compared to us, and the world number one got it totally right. He got 999 points to the world number one from goals scored. You got 891. I'm sat there with 706 points from goals scored, which is pretty awful compared to everybody else's statistics and numbers on here. Is that just timing? Were you watching games? Were you going, I want to pick that player at this time, and did you just land on Watkins' balls? Did you land, what worked?
I think Watkins definitely would have been the one again that was on at the right time. I probably should have stayed on him for longer. I think if you stay on Watkins for most of this season, you would have been laughing. You never even needed to transfer him out. But yeah, I think I always target goals, to be honest, above everything. So it's just going to the obvious picks, to be honest, I think.
Yeah, whereas I had some more in terms of assists and also clean sheet points. The other thing to point out, I think, just on here from there's two other things I'll point out. Formation 3-5-2, we went constantly at that level. The world number one was at 3-4-3, which only Baz was similar to, but only 20 points in hits. Barry took 12, and Baz was trying to actively avoid taking hits, and so did the world number one, who took 12. Scotty took 52, and I took 48, so I only took one less hit than you did this season.
I didn't think I took that many this season as well. Shocking.
Yeah,
I think honestly, gone to me, genuinely, I'd have said no more than 20 hits. I thought this season.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, maybe I've read it wrong. I don't know, but that's what it said there.
Yeah, probably right. Yeah, probably. Right.
From the FPL optimized chart and Fantasy Premier League tool, it said 52. Did you actively try and avoid taking hits, Ali, or when do you take a hit?
Yeah, because I remember last year 2-hit happy, and it never really paid off. So sometimes you just got to be patient, and just hope that you can wait a week and make that transfer the week after. What was the other question there? Was it?
No, I was just talking about formation. That was the other thing was 3-5-2. Again, I think it's relatively obvious that really, isn't it? You know, midfielders were the points, where defenders weren't in existence, and it was Watkins +1 or Haaland +1, wasn't it, up front really?
Spoiled for choice in midfield this season.
Yeah, definitely.
I think the way the season's gone as well. One of the things I've took away from it, especially when we get on its injury time, is there wasn't many clean sheets. So you can only have 3 players from each team. You've probably got a couple of attacking Arsenal players. So you've got one Arsenal defender. So what I've done a couple of times is gone, oh, that person's got a lovely, they're at home, City are at home to Burnley. That's a guaranteed clean sheet. It's not a guaranteed clean sheet. There's no guaranteed clean sheets. Even Sheffield United were scoring against everyone this year. So I think that's one for me where it's like there's no guaranteed 6 points coming in. So actually, one thing I'd probably actively try and do next season is really cut down on the hits.
The defenders it was basically just double Arsenal defence for a bit if you wanted to, but then also they had some good attacking options. So I'd won. Saliba was the only constant in my team every game week this season, bar my free hit. He was just in my team from game week 1, and he went from 5 million to 5.9, and he just constantly chipped away. He was top scoring defender for ages. Then obviously Ben White overtook him in the end. But it was that. I had the most clean sheet points out of everyone. I was only 20 short of the world number one in terms of clean sheet points. I think I kind of got that. It was one of the things I actually did get right. If anyone wants to go to FPL Optimized, it's a great website. You know, have an even greater detailed look at your season. And there's a points predictor versus what you actually achieved. Sort of luck graph, as it was called. And the world number one was running at 260 points above predicted, which, I mean, it says a lot, doesn't it, really? And Ali, you're only 60 points above predicted. So it's been a really big topic in the FPL community at the moment about statistics, numbers, people looking at expected points, clean sheet odds, and this, that, and the other. Do you look at the stats when you are looking at your transfers in terms of expected this, expected that? Or do you simply just go, they seem to be doing well, they're in form?
Yeah, I mean, you can only really wait one transfer. I don't think it's worth I obviously look at sort of who's playing who and as you say, Scott, sort of like who's at home, who's got a better chance, who just a really basic level, who is the most likely person to win me points this week, rather than, and I don't get bogged down by XG and whatever the other XG assists, all that sort of stuff. Now,
XGA.
you could literally spend days doing that for
Alex does.
what could like change. They could get red carded or get injured within 10 minutes. It's just sometimes it's just not worth it. So I think like look at a very basic level of stats, and just and form and stuff like that. But other than that, it's sort of a lot of those decisions, especially this season, I think picked themselves because they were a core elite of players, who you needed to have in your team, basically.
It's very interesting to see that the two best performing leagues in the world were a league called FPL Optimized and another one which is another statistics-based league, and they were the two best performing leagues. And the world number one who won this season, he watches football, but he is so ingrained in the stats. That's one of the things that he looks at to another level. And it's interesting to see the shift in FPL, because I think a lot of us, and this is kind of the point of this podcast, though, really, we don't want to go too heavily into the statistics. It's not the audience we want, and it's not the people that we are to produce the content here. But it feels very much like that detail, those statistics and those numbers are going to become more and more talked about across other content rather than actually the kicking a ball. Yeah, quick shout out to my minus 80 points below expected, but never mind. It's just the way it ran this season, I think. Ships. So I promise you'll be able to go walk your dog soon, Ali. I know I said I'd keep you for 20 minutes and we're already on 35. So I apologise, but I can't help but talk about it. I'm finding it very interesting. The Wildcard 1, Wildcard 2, free hit, bench boost, triple captain, and then points gained per average is what's on the screen at this very moment in time. For podcast listeners and also YouTube watchers can see it. All of us, including the world number one, used our triple captain in game week 25. It seemed relatively obvious on Haaland. There was a better time to use it probably, but we all made a plus gain of 10 points. And I think I'd take that if someone offered me at the beginning of the season, to be honest. I don't think it's too bad at all. But one of the things that was really noticeable, and obviously I pointed this out before about your climb, was between game week 8 and game week 14. You went from, when you played your wild card in game week 8, you went from 2.4 million to 454k in the world overall. And a really, really good gain from that. Were there any notable players in game week 8 that you picked up? Obviously, maybe Palmer, one of them. Were there any players that you can remember notably?
No, that's the main one, to be honest. I do remember a shocking start to the season. I almost thought I've fucked it already, and then I was annoyed about having to play my wild card that early, but obviously it was worth it in the end. Sometimes you think you need to hold these things, but if you're really having a disaster, then that shows that it can pay off, I guess. But other than I can't really remember who were the key players in game week 8. Probably Arsenal defense as well, I guess. As well.
Yeah, that probably will have been. I think in terms of takeaways as well, I look at players. Sorry, I look at Barry. You went from 2.7 million to 645k. Scott, you played it a week even earlier. You went from 4.1 million to 1.2 million. So massive gains. World number one game week 8, 162k to 938. And I waited all the way until game week 17. I tried to get through as far through the season as I possibly could do. And I went from 2.7 to 1.2. So I had the smallest gain by waiting the longest. Now, there are some obvious reasons to that. The pack is more spread further down the season. It's not just play it earlier or don't play it late. Play it early is the best way to do it. But it was notable the size of Scott and all three of you on the podcast with me has climbed actually since game week 8. Scott, any players you remember from your wildcarded a week earlier? Anyone that really paid off for you that stuck out?
No, I can't remember.
That's exactly the answer I expected you to give me, to be honest. So I don't worry about that.
I think there was some injuries in there as well, to be honest with you. I think I didn't have any Arsenal defence at the beginning of the season. I'm pretty sure I'd have got an Arsenal defender in. I think I jumped on Watkins then, as well, and he, potentially not. I don't know, but
no, you went. I'll tell you what you did. You went Trippier and you got his run. You got Bowen.
Yep.
you stuck with Diaby, who was one of your differentials as well. And then you also had Mo Salah for his 15-point haul, which is one of the players that Ali bought in. Yeah, you went. The Trippier was one of your biggest. You caught him for that sweet spot.
And I think that was the eye test. I'm pretty sure I brought him in because he was looking like he was playing well. Newcastle were looking like they were doing all right. So I think that was. I would say just on the wild card, like I always find it tricky when to play it. Like sometimes I get sucked in because everyone's playing the wild card. But actually, I think it's just really important to look at your team and go, I'm fine with this team, and don't rush into it. I think because the last couple of seasons as well, we've been given another one because of COVID, another one because of the World Cup. I think people can be quite clicky and happy if like doing a wild card maybe too quick. It feels like looking at when Baz and Ali and the world number one did their wild card, it seemed that was probably an obvious time to do it at the time. But I think for me, I know in the past I've done it after like game week 3. Cully, friend of the pod, he does it, ridiculously early. So I think it's someone and look at your team. If you're happy with it, just keep your team.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. And the free hit you played in game week 29, Ali, obviously, it didn't work out in terms of the numbers on that game week. But what I will ask is, you played your wild card in game week 35, which then halved your rank. And there's been a lot of talk about the chip usage, and obviously I'll come to you, Barry, on this as well. Hopefully your signal holds up for it. But I'll come to you on this in terms of chips, Baz, because this is what you were talking about before. But Ali, did game week 29 wasn't a good week to play the free hit in terms of the points that you got? But did it help you wildcard later into the season to then help you gain that huge amount that you got from the bench boost in 37? Was that
slightly? But a little bit, yes. But I think if I could do it again, well, obviously, free hitting in a blank game week just is with hindsight is just pretty stupid, to be honest. Because the likelihood of scoring a lot of points versus folk who aren't who aren't free hitting that week is just so slim. And there were dreadful teams as well, from what I recall. It was Luton, was it Bournemouth? I say dreadful.
Yeah, it was. Brentford, Fulham, Spurs. Spurs was the biggest one. It was the biggest transfer into the season. Everyone transferred in Heung-min Son for game week 29. I think 1 point something or 2 million managers transferred him in, something crazy, and got 2 points.
That's it. I think it was a mistake, but I'm sure I would have gained again, as you say, in terms of not having made the transfers to prepare for the following game weeks.
Yeah, well, you followed it up with a 68, 42, and a 71. I wildcarded in 31, so I got 81 points that week, which was good. But the other 2 weeks, he did outscore me. So potentially, I think that even though free hit 29 on paper looks like it didn't go well, I think if it helped you play the strategy better later, then actually it wasn't too bad. Barry, what were you saying about your about the chips earlier? Sorry.
So leading up to my bench boost, I had a lot of injuries and I took a few hits to try and obviously get the bench boost right. But then some more injuries happened and I was like, well I'm going to go for it anyway. Where in hindsight, I should have just gone free hit because I've took that many hits and my team's not fully set up for it. I should just free hit and then done a bench boost bit later on to sort out my team doing the free hits doing the hits that way. So
you got
yeah, that was
wed to a strategy and didn't show the flexibility to change from it. Basically, is what you're saying.
Near enough, yeah. And I've gone too tunnel vision into that strategy where I should have actually bailed because it wasn't going to happen because of the injuries and potential non-starters that I had in my team. And I thought I should have just free hitted because it worked out great for everyone on that time instead of obviously bench boosting because I only got 2 points because them players didn't play that I expected to play. So
well, you had you had the biggest disaster from a bench boost in sense of 2 points. I only got 6 from mine. Scott 17, not bad at all really. Ali with 28.
Best I've ever done, I think that genuinely.
It's a good bench boost. 28, excellent for Ali. Game week 37 and 22. You eclipsed the world number 1's bench boost that week, Ali.
Take it.
Definitely put that in your back pocket. You and I both benefited compared to the average in bench boost by 37 points from our 2 chips there, including the 10 for the triple captain, 47 points from the 3 chips. To us, Barry were 15 points plus a 10, so at 25. Scott, only 4 points from the free hit and 17 from the bench boost, put you on 21. So not the best, but not terrible. 31 total, including that. But it does show that I suppose the thing is with the chip usage is that it can be a bit tepid, it can be a bit whatever, but it does show that sometimes if you just get the timing right, you just get it a little bit of luck with the free hit 34 and the bench boost 37. Those were the 2 right times to use the chips, right in inverted commas, but the right times to use the chips. And it paid off massively for the world number 1. 89 points he was up from those 2 chips. Just worked out for him, really, at the end of the day. Last slide, Ali, I promise for you. This was to have a look at the biggest heroes and the biggest villains for you from the season. I was going to ask you who your favourite player was and who your biggest troll was. I'll ask you those 2 questions now. Now you have these statistics on here to show you that, according to the stats, Anthony Gordon, one of the players you wildcarded in, was your biggest hero, and Saliba was the one that cost you the most points.
That's exactly who I was going to say, funnily enough. I didn't know that. I hadn't seen those stats either, but yeah, I think obvious choice of hero was Palmer, but mine was on Anthony Gordon, so I transferred him in, I think it was like game week 8, but in that wild card.
Yeah,
and then he never left. And a lot of people I noticed that in my leagues and stuff, people were always putting me on the bench, not backing him, transferring out, but he always, well, more or less, always delivered, especially assists, bonus points. He was brilliant. And whenever I always noted, whenever other people had dropped him and I kept him in, he always seemed to get points, and that's when I made these gains. So Anthony Gordon, definitely my hero.
He did fantastically well for you. Like I said, plus about 83 points in terms of the way that these statistics work are, in terms of like against the group of players that you are in the same sort of rank as and league as. That's how your how he performed for you, basically, in comparison to them. Not the best way of describing it in the world. Gabrielle and Son on there for you. Who was your biggest troll? Saliba, Dubravka, and Richarlison are the 3 that are listed here. I mean, they're listed here because other people own them and you never really did all season, so they hurt your rank. But
yeah.
Was it Nunes or was it someone else?
No, biggest troll for me was Pedro Porro, because I had him in my team for ages, and he's just an absolute myth. Like he doesn't deliver anywhere near as people make out. Obviously, Spurs very rarely get a clean sheet for starters, and then until the last few game weeks, I can't remember him delivering that many assists or goals. He obviously had a great end of the season, but I could just never. I remember I couldn't transfer him out because I had so many other fires to put out, and so he just started to stay there in the hope that he might deliver. But he was a nightmare, Porro.
Your player, the luckiest player in terms of the rank you can see here was Gordon for you. Apparently he outperformed what he was supposed to do for you by 29 points. So he seemed to do really well for you. Scott, Kai was the man for you. He was up 30 points on his predicted points for you since you had him in. Would he be your hero of the season?
Yeah, I think he's the one that I brought in when I did my second wild card, and we were having a chat about him, maybe Odegaard, and like you said, Odegaard. Well, Havertz was the differential at the time, so again watching football, he looked lively there, and I can't remember many game weeks after that where he didn't return. So yeah, he was a bit of a hero for me this season. It's funny, isn't it? Now I really like Kai Havertz.
Yeah, it's amazing what fantasy makes you do, doesn't it, for players? Not owning Gabriel, Saka, and Porro were the ones that hurt you the most. Everyone, because I think it's just because everyone had either Gabriel or Saliba or Saka for pretty much the whole season. Is that something that you think you should have done? Is that what's in your reflection, Scott? Do you feel like you missed out on points? Do you feel like did you deliberately go away from Saka for a reason, or?
I went away from Saka at one point. He wasn't looking good, and then he got a really lucky I think he got a penalty when he was so lucky, or he got a really lucky big haul return one game week. He got like 13 points when he actually didn't perform very well. And obviously I've not had him in a couple of times at some points during the season. Porro, yeah. I think I brought him in, and was it game week 29 when we free hit, and me and Ali free hit, and he got sent off after like a minute. That was fun. Was that him?
Regulon got sent
That
off.
was Regulon. Right, yeah. That ex Spurs. I don't know what I'm on about anymore. Yes.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right about
that. Yeah. So I think Porro, just not owning him, it's cost me a bit there, but I wouldn't be gutted that I didn't have any of them. I wasn't like, I should have got them in. I didn't think they performed that well. I feel like I had other players to cover.
Yeah. Baz, Phil Foden, your man. And never owning Son really at the right time. Apparently killed you this season looking at the FPL optimized graph, which kind of surprised me because he's in your team. Well, no reveal for later. But he's in one of those teams. But yeah, does that ring true for you? Foden and Branthwaite was another big one for you.
Yeah, I got on Branthwaite pretty early, and I started with Foden, and then I wild carded him out, and I got actually Son in, and then Son just didn't perform for a bit. So I thought, right, I'll take Son out and get Foden in, and it kind of worked out. I lost 19 points looking at that. But I'm surprised Solanke's not on there, because every time I didn't have him, he scored or he did something, and then when I got him in, he didn't really do a lot for me. So I was quite surprised that Solanke wasn't on there, to be honest, for my biggest troll.
Yeah, mine was always Trippier, always this season. Honestly, the man just, I never got his return. I transferred him back out again after I brought him in on my wild card, and then he returned 3 weeks in a row. Like it was like he was meant to hurt me this season. He was only predicted to hurt me by 9 points. He ended up hurting me by 31.3. It was ridiculous. It was almost laughable. They got battered one week and he still got an assist. And yeah, Saliba was my man all season, just constant putting in the points, which was great. And Douglas Luiz, I said it many times on the pod, got me 77 points against everybody else in that sort of bracket. There's a fifth midfielder alongside Palmer in that bracket. He was fantastic for me. He was definitely my hero of the season. He outperformed us by 6 points. And yeah, the luckiest player for me was Saliba. To round off, Ali, before I let you go, and thank you so much for taking the time to join us. It's been great. It's great to have you. What have you got? Any bit of advice that you want to give to any player looking to start playing fantasy next season, or to try and do a little bit better at FPL?
Definitely, the main one is don't make knee-jerk decisions or reactions just because
Are you listening, Baz?
That's something I learned from that. I was very, I think, transfer and hit happy last season, and you're better just to sit out and wait and trust your team. Because as Scott says, it's a lot of it is down to luck. It's definitely that. Have patience. Never signed Darwin Núñez, and yeah, I'd say that. And I think what we said earlier about captaincy, I think if you want to gain points, you have to take gambles. And so knowing when, like, there'll be certain weeks when you know you can go off Haaland or whoever it might be next season, who's probably Palmer. It's sort of just taking a chance in certain game weeks. Is probably the only way to propel yourself up. I'm talking like I'm an expert.
Listen,
I'm making up as I go along.
Yeah, but listen, I think we all are, mate. I mean, I've played this game for like 13 years or something. I'm still making it up as I go along, and I still learn something new every season, or just remember something different. So, really appreciate your time, Ali. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks very much. Cheers.
And, enjoy the dog walk.
Well, see you next season, guys.
Cheers, Ali.
Bye.
Thanks to Ali. So, lads, we'll move on to team of the season. And we're going to have a look now in terms of the players that have done really well this year. And Barry put together this graphic for us, so thank you very much for doing that. To run through, Pickford in goal, 153 points. White, Gabriel, and Saliba, 182, 149, and 164 respectively. Palmer 224, Foden 230, Saka 226, Son 213, Salah 211. What a bad season apparently. Watkins 228 and Haaland 217. No surprises there other than Palmer, really. Would you say, Baz? And also, anyone on there that maybe Son's the guy that you just feel like you just really missed out on those points this season.
You could argue people were shocked how good Watkins has been this season, to be honest. You're just thinking there's only one option really for centre forward, and that's Haaland. People are probably thinking, well, let's go for a 4-5-1 maybe. Yeah, on that graphic there was 4 Arsenal players, but that's because they did that well, and I just did the highest scorers in that. I'm surprised about how well Arsenal did in defence, to be honest. But obviously signing Rice and getting Partey back at the back end of the season kind of helped them a lot. So yeah, I think, and Raya as well, obviously kind of consistent. Did obviously some mistakes, but he was pretty consistent throughout. When he obviously got his shot. So yeah, but Pickford's shot to save ratio, I think that obviously helped, and Dyche, obviously, we know Dyche is very defensive and sets his team up pretty well. So obviously Pickford was obviously a solid choice, and he started at 4.5, I believe. So, so if he got on him at start, then it was a great keeper choice, because I don't like spending loads of money on keepers, as I keep touching upon. So for me, that's what I would say on that.
In terms of keepers, so Pickford, that was his thing. If he'd have got the same points last season as he did this season, he was the top performing keeper this year. He'd have been 5th last year. Just shows, didn't really mean, but also 153 in a season where there weren't that many clean sheets. I mean, Everton had the 4th best defence in the league, but even the season before, Raya was the top performing keeper, 166, Alisson 162, De Gea was 161, Pope was 157. These were all last season. It just goes to show again, really. I mean, we won't linger on keepers any longer than this, but there's no point spending loads of money on them, is there? That's the simple thing. They're going to have to really start. I mean, they've already tried to bring keeper prices down a little bit, so that helps a lot. White 182 outperformed by quite a long way in the end, and then Saliba at 164, Gabriel 149. Shout out to Porrin, obviously Branthwaite, and then you've got Walker and Guardiola. Guardiola's a lot of his points came towards the end of the season. Shah and Trent a bit lower down. Then you've got a couple of Palace defenders as well for this season. They 182, 164, and 149. Remember those.
What you got to think on? Gabriel didn't play for the first 4 or 5 games.
Yeah. Well, I think his points per game he'd have passed Saliba.
Oh, right.
I don't think he'd have done White, but we had no one like Trippier from last season, but 198 last season Trippier was. But then after that, it was White and Trent at 156 apiece, and Gabriel at 146. So again, we're seeing a decline in the amount of points that defenders are getting. If we have a look at the season before that, we had Trent and Cancelo both in the 200s, with Robertson and Virgil all in the 180s. We saw some quite notable defences that were doing really, really well. And the season before that, Dallas at 171. Obviously he's retired this season, so shout out to him, with Trent and Robertson underneath there. And then I'm pretty sure this was the season underneath. No, it wasn't the season underneath. Yeah, 210 for Trent in the season beneath that. Robertson 181. So the trend is that defenders are definitely moving in the other direction, and 3 at the back seems to be the way. Let me go back onto here, because I think this is probably the best thing for me to do. Oh, so it's gone back to the start. Sorry, skip through. Well done. Always clicking. In terms of season's top performers here, I'll go on to these numbers. Yeah, Palmer top. We saw per 90. This is what I wanted to get to. Top performers per 90. Elise at 5.7 mil, 19 appearances. He averaged 8.81 points per game per 90 minutes that he played. Jota 8.6. Palmer was 8.3 as a top scoring player. Then it was Haaland at 7.6. Trossard 7.5, doing some really good returns there. Salah at 7.4. Richarlison 7.3. Foden 7.2, outperforming De Bruyne with 7.1, and then Saka with 6.9. So the notable ones on there are Elise, Jota, Trossard, probably Richarlison. I'd say those ones that are on there. I had the great week with Jota that week. Were they just difficult players to invest in this season? You jumped on Richarlison at one point, Baz. Any of those guys stand out to you, and will any of those guys be? Because those are the players that won't go up a lot in price, because they didn't actually get overall loads of points, but they did get the points per 90. Any of those players really going to stick out for you next season between sort of Elise, Jota, Trossard, Richarlison?
I like Jota when he plays, and they usually play him as a centre forward, but you don't know what slot's going to do. And with Salah potentially maybe leaving and going to Saudi, it looks like Jota will be a great shout for that for next season. Elise, he was rarely fit. He was always constantly probably injured. I think he had spells where he played 4 or 5 games injured, 4 or 5 games played, but he came back with a bang. And he's linked with Man United, so I won't be jumping on him if he goes to Man United, especially when if Ten Hag's still there. Trossard, it looks like he's in favour now over Martinelli, so very, very tempted on that front. And Richarlison, he plays as a number 9 for Spurs, and he had a good link up with Maddison and Son. So, yeah, I think his position would probably change to a forward next season. Same with like Havertz. Yeah. So it gives you potential options to go for a forward line of having a 3-4-3 instead of a 3-5-2. So yeah. And I think Jota might turn into a centre forward as well.
Yeah, he's always a debatable one, Jota, isn't he? He kind of flicks about from season to season. Scott, your take on those players? I know you're a Trossard fan. You jumped on him in differential draft, and that did you really well. And is someone like himself going to be someone that you're going to be potentially looking at starting with next season? Because I still think he's going to probably be quite good value.
Yeah, I think so. Like if Elise wasn't so injury prone, like Baz says, it'd be, if he was 5.5 million, it'd be definitely sniffing my team. But in a couple of weeks, he's one of your transfers. He's going to be injured for 2 months. Whereas Trossard seems a bit more robust. Like Baz says, he's got his eye in over Martinelli now. It looks like Jesus was definitely out of favour at the end of the season, even though he's fully fit. So yeah, Trossard's been brilliant. Let's not forget how well he did for Brighton. Brighton, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It could take about 10 days now with no football.
Yeah, I'm probably going off it. Yeah, I'm just losing the plot. He did so well for Brighton, and obviously that's why Arsenal came knocking. And I think he's going to be a big part of that team going forward next season. So he would be the one out of all them that I would be looking at. But Elise, just stay fit, and he's going to be one we're always going to be talking about, especially around that 5 to 6 million mark.
Just imagine if at the end, we're going to talk about the where the value will be, but the way that Palace teams finished the season, Europe for them next year. Yeah, look, they're a team right there, aren't they? Which hopefully will still show some really good value. Barry, over to you, mate. You want to talk us through the differential draft roundup and where we all finished?
Yeah, so for you two watchers, the results per game week is on screen. So I've looked at breaking it into like a head-to-head as well. So who won one and who came second and who lost. So overall, I won on 726 points, whereas there was a spell where I was miles behind and I changed tactic and went for under ones, near enough only, and it paid off really dividends to me. So for next season, I might actually do a full team of a differential team, just to be interested. I think it gives people to have a good look at it and go, yeah, I wouldn't mind having him in my team. Scott, with a good recovery, came back and got 672 because he was miles behind at one point, and then I think from game week 30 he played his hands really well and picked.
Got my screens, and I got my screens, so I'm fine. Yeah.
And then obviously Alex just started off so well, and then a bit story of his FPL career, really, to be honest. Died down in 660, the curse of the guru. Looking at the head-to-head, I won the most on 15, came second 11, and then lost 12. Scott won 11, but he came second quite a lot, so that obviously helped him with points, and obviously got 15 on that, and then 12 losses. And then Alex got won 12, second 12, and then lost 14, and they both Scott and Alex both finished on 48 points. So, and the 3-week punt, Scott just ran away with it, to be honest, with Bruno. He finished the season really strong and probably will be leaving, depending on obviously the this decision about Newcastle with if they go into financial fair play, if they can sell him or not. But he got 29 points for Bruno. Madueke got 19, and then Wilson obviously hobbled off with 6 points for me, returned in the first week, and then got injured, and then came on for 1. So yeah,
classic Wilson, mate. There, wasn't it? Classic Wilson.
Scott finished off strong, so hopefully can take that into new season and maybe win something next season.
Yeah, let's see.
16 points game week 38. That's what it with Bruno. 16 points in a game week. What a week! What a week! That did it when those returns. So yeah, well done to you, Scott, and well done to you, Baz, as well, for winning the differential draft, and also the 3-week pump. I wanted to. Shall I go into this next? I've lost my next one. Oh, okay, that's that. We'll get off that. I want to just touch on your cup run, Barry. That's what I want to do.
Yeah.
And talk to you about you. I mean, we got to say, I mean, it's pretty incredible, really, that you've won the cup in the first year, the league in the second year, and the cup again in the third year. That is it's ridiculous, really, to win something in every year so far. It's incredible. I know your run to the final wasn't exactly the toughest this year compared to previous. I mean, I think we're all being fair, really, there for to say that. But what's the secret? What's really worked for you? Talk to us.
I think this season and the first season where I obviously took part was I had no chance of really winning the league. So I thought, right, well, the first season I was like, right, I'm focusing on the cup, and obviously you two guys, I wasn't a part of the team then, and you was rooting for me to win it and things like that, and the massive minus 28 points I took or something like that obviously changed my season around and changed my fortunes, and I did finish off strong. The season before, obviously, I was just Mr. Consistent, and obviously the Wilson and Isaac coin flip paid off.
Yeah, big time,
but,
didn't it?
Yeah, this season was slightly different. Obviously, if I was against some other people, I would have been out. So it was more luck than being good. I think the only time I was good was the final game where I had to literally step up and unfortunately stop Richard Kirk for winning the double, and he ended up winning nothing, unfortunately for him. So yeah, and as we touched upon, his decision to bench Isaac was an absolute killer for him. Obviously, I brought in. Who did I bring in? I brought in Van der Ven. Grace Adid told me to bring in Van der Ven instead of Gusto, and that paid off because Van der Ven kept a clean sheet and Gusto got 2 or 1 point. So it paid off quite fortunate on that front. So
starting Bradford as well, and Henderson coming on as well. I think having 2 decent keepers really paid off then at that point as well.
Yeah, so that was also handy. So it was down to probably luck, and I had a few chips left still to play, and other people that I played obviously was a null and void team, so that helped a lot. So yeah, I think it was more luck than skill on this season anyway.
Yeah, I mean, you say that. I mean, at the end of the day, I know you got a couple of green arrows in the middle of there. Two smaller red arrows to end the season, but yeah, it's just it's the way it falls, mate. I think, and at the end of the day, you had to beat the guy that was top of the league in the final, who ended up unfortunately, and commiserations to Richard, because at the end of the day, you were sat there and you could have won the double, and the Isak decision. Yeah, that one decision has it cost the league, but it wouldn't have won the cup still for him because of the -4. So he was trying to do something at the end, and yeah, it hurts, doesn't it, when that doesn't end up working out for you. That's for sure. One now to touch on the new format for the Champions League and the new format for the FA Cup and just how it will affect FPL. So bear with me on this. It's very, 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 very simple. The Champions League and the Europa League, you'll now have 8 matches rather than 6 in the group stages. So 8 matches before Christmas rather than 6, which means you'll have an extra midweek game, 2 extra midweek games for all of the top 6 teams. I'm not sure about the Conference League. Can't remember if that's got extra games or not. But yeah, anyway, the top 6 teams will have an extra 2 midweek fixtures. And then also, so they'll just have more games. And the FA Cup now will have exclusive weekends for the 4th, 5th, and quarterfinals. And also will have an exclusive weekend for the cup final, which will be before game week 38. It'll be the weekend before game week 38, which is going to happen within the season. Which means that the big blank game week we had this season is normally in conjunction with the FA Cup quarterfinals. So that big blank game week won't exist next year. And as an FPL manager who's been doing this for a very long time, that is something that has always been the kind of the key date to look at for the big blank and then the 2 doubles that will come afterwards. Actually, what will happen is there'll be a blank game week for the Carabao Cup final, and so 2 to 4 teams will blank. And then there'll be a blank game week for the FA Cup semi-finals. That's how I read into this anyway. So again, you might have between 4 and 8 teams blanking. So there'll probably be still one decent-sized double to work at, and there'll be a couple of smaller blank game weeks. But that will eradicate the big blank, you'd have thought. Unless 4 Prem teams make the semi-finals of the FA Cup, which is more than possible, and they all play 4 different teams, and then there'll be only 6 fixtures rather than 4, but still it won't be as big as the blank previously. So what that makes me think a lot more about is next season's investment being in teams that, again, aren't in Europe at all in the first half of the season. I think that's going to be a big deal because actually the way that it works out is that it's almost, including the international breaks, the League Cup, and the Champions League, I don't think any of the top 6 teams will have a midweek break. I think they'll basically play a game every 4 days, all the way until Christmas. So rotation, etc. Anyway, that's the bear in mind. Initial thoughts on this, Barry? Anything you want to add, or yourself, Scott, before we move on to talking to about the next bits?
No, you took my thunder earlier, to be honest, with the Champions League new format. There's going to be a lot of rotation on FPL next season due to this. So just keep an eye out on that front, and then obviously non-FPL basis on the FA Cup with obviously the replays and stuff like that. It's obviously not good for the lower teams such as like mine and Scott's team, like Swansea and Scunthorpe and teams like that for the replays. So yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, but we'll see. Yeah, the lack of that big blank game week. The one
thing I'll just say. Really quickly though.
Far away, yeah.
It's really good that the players are all resting now. The season's finished. They all get to rest because they're playing a lot during the season, so they get to rest. And that's one of the reasons that clubs out loud replay, so they get to rest. But they don't, because they're all getting money. Not the players. The clubs are all getting in Australia playing and getting injured before Euros and that. It's an absolute disgrace. It's everything I hate about football. Carry on.
Oh yeah, players are being absolutely rinsed, aren't they? Let's be honest. So yeah, and it's affecting the pyramid and then also the England team, which is very frustrating.
They're treating the players like a product, not human beings.
Yes, because football's a business at the moment, and it's very difficult. Yeah, on that front, they pay him, and the problem is they paid him such a lot of money. Got to keep the ball every 4 days, haven't you? Getting paid 250 grand a week, for these big players. Even the players been paid 80 grand a week. It's the way. It's tough, really tough going. I think. Wrap up the lessons learned for the season on FPL, because we're going to get onto actual football chat now and onto the England stuff as well. We're going to review our predictions and have a little bit of a laugh at ourselves potentially as well. But Barry, your wrap up for your lessons learned for the FPL season for 23-24.
Just don't get tunnel vision. If you're going for a strategy and you've looked at it and gone, actually, it's not going to pay off as good as I want, because I knew my bench boost wasn't going to get me a massive points. I should have just changed tactics and gone, right, I'm going free hit. I think that's probably one that I'm looking at. And obviously Ali's points from earlier was very similar to what I was going to say as well. But something else that I think could be interesting if FPL introduced it. I know they've got the challenge and stuff like that, but a potential another chip where you could use it and double your overall score that you get for that game week would be quite interesting. Just thought.
Yeah, could be something else. They're trying to make sure they don't overcomplicate it, but also at the same time they're try and make it fun, I suppose, as well. That's the key, because at the end of the day, it's all about participation for them and how many people they can direct to the Premier League website and how many people they can keep watching the game. So they don't want to make the prices too bad because they can't afford all your favourite players. There are certain players that play it a little bit more keenly, and they want to make it so that the masses can play it, and they don't want to overcomplicate it. But maybe a chip like that just makes it more fun might really work out. Funny actually, Baz, you talk about the being more flexible. It doesn't help you now, but I saw you play your bench boost, and it made me not play my free hit in game week 37 and make me play it in 38, which gave me a massive benefit because of exactly that, being flexible on strategy. I was always going to play it in 37, but then I saw what happened and I thought, I don't think I'm going to make massive gains here. And it was being flexible and watching what happened that made me do it. And game week 38 was fantastic for me in terms of gains and benefits. My biggest lesson before I come to you, Scott, was that I've had a hectic year. Your little children, promotion at work, lots of stuff going on. I just haven't watched enough football. I just haven't been engaged in actually watching games. If I've sat down to watch a game and made time, it's been to watch my club play because they've been on telly. And I've not even watched Match of the Day every week. I haven't been as engaged. And I've had the worst FPL season I've had in 10 years. And there's a reason for that. And I think that's my biggest takeaway, is to have FPL it was almost an additional thing for me this year, but it should be an accompaniment to me watching football. And that's what I need to get back into the habit of, because then I'll enjoy it more. Because I stopped enjoying it as much this year for me personally. And it's because I wasn't watching enough football, and it almost became a little bit of a chore. And that's not what I want to do. I want to have it as an accompaniment. Scott, your lessons learned, because you've had a great attitude towards it this year, other than I think only one game week you've got really meh about it. And I think you've had a great attitude towards it here, to be honest.
Yeah, you've touched on it. I had two lessons learned. One is to just enjoy fantasy football and don't take it too seriously. This is the first season in a long while ever, really, where I've not been annoyed if my players not scored an easy chance, or annoyed. I'd get more annoyed when people got lucky. It got to me a little bit, not massively at all, but I really wanted to win the cup. So, when I ran really unlucky against Richard Kirk, and there was a pointless goal scored against me, I was a bit annoyed at that. But yeah, I've enjoyed football much more. I've been able to just watch a game of football and not be like, oh no, my fantasy player. It's a nice added bonus when your fantasy player does well, but I still love football for football's sake. And then the other one, what I was going to say is, and I can't remember what it was, but no, sorry, yeah. Try and watch football, and if you can, and I've not done this, I think I've only done this 4 or 5 times this year, watch Match of the Day, because actually the little bit of brief analysis they do at the end of the Match of the Day really does highlight people in form. And that's when you might be like, oh yeah, God, at least he's doing really well. And oh God, yeah, they are keeping clean sheets, but they do look super vulnerable at the back. So actually just a tiny little 3-4 minutes that, Alan Shearer and Lineker and Micah Richards do are really good actually, and they can put you onto players quickly. So they were my two things. But yeah, this season for fantasy for me has been really fun because I've just took it as a game. I've got up on a Saturday morning. I've laid in bed, I've done my team, not thought too much about it, and I've enjoyed the weekend of football.
And not being a sorry, go on.
So plus on that as well, I think because you're not stressing about the captaincy as well, I think that's potentially why you've done quite well, because obviously we all panicked and captained Haaland as well, and I think that's another strategy to look at as well, as you can live and die by your captain. Like me, captain Jackson over Palmer's affected me massively. But also touch upon the match of the day thing as well, is you can look at teams that potentially might be coming into form and jump and get on that differential player before he starts performing obscene. Like, for example, like Mateta. They did an analysis on Mateta and saying, look, he looks really good and things like that. And then he scores and scores and scores and scores. So if you got on that bandwagon before and listened to the match today analysis or TalkSport, for example, then yeah, you could get serious gains from that as well.
There's definitely a big blend in looking at some of the statistics and the eye test. And actually, the crazy thing is, in terms of the models and like the solvers and this, that, and the other that people have, to try and, which just takes, but that's their fun. And analytics is their fun. My fun is an accompaniment to watching football. So, but I do think there's value in both sides, and the actual analytical model says not to watch the game. That's one of the things that was said to me that blew my mind, actually. It said, if you watch the game, it will take you away from thinking analytically and take you away from what the solver says, because you'll notice certain players for whatever reasons that you like to see, and it's personal bias versus what the machine says. I mean, for me, that takes all the fun out of it. But it was really interesting. The conversation that I listened to on FPL Wire podcast with a guy called Late Riser, Praz, who does a lot of stuff for Fantasy Football Hub, and Zoffa. They're really great guys and great chat, but they're very analytical. If you want to get into the absolute weeds of analysis, that's the sort of podcast to listen to, rather than this one who were like, he kicked the ball really well last week and I really like it. So I think we're going to go with him. Team of the seasons, lads. So let's talk about football. Let's do as much chat as we can do about this now. So I want to start with you, Scott. Go through your team that's on the screen, and yeah, tell us which what your 11 was to start with.
Yeah, no worries. Let me look. I'm on my phone. Yeah, so Pickford, is a big reason where Everton stayed up this season. He gets a lot of stick, but I think he's had a really solid season, and we've always said he's a shot stopper, and his distribution has been fantastic. I had to go double Arsenal defence, and I wanted to go only 3 defenders. Because I don't think defence we've already touched on it, defence has not been that great this season, so I don't think it deserves to be 4 or definitely not 5 defenders in the formation. Arsenal, the only team really to be consistent with keeping clean sheets this season as well, so I just had to go White and Saliba in there, and they've been the 2 outstanding players for Arsenal. Could have easily not had Guardiola in this next spot and had Gabriel in, but I think one of the big reasons why City have stormed the league is his goals and his contribution towards the back end as well. I think he's been outstanding, so he's in there. Rodri, again, Mr. Consistent. I think he's only just lost his first game against your boys. When he started, he's been on a ridiculous 78 winning run or something. So he's so important to that team, and he just, he didn't start the Champions League final against Chelsea a few years ago, and ultimately that was one of the big downfalls. Declan Rice in there, he's been pivotal to the Arsenal team, absolute bargain. I'm going to come to my other midfielder next one last, because obviously it's probably the talking point for my team. Foden in there, player of the year, outstanding, hopefully does it again, plays in prep position for England. Haaland, top goal scorer, did the business towards the back end. Palmer, outstanding, scored a lot of penalties, but one of the big reasons that Chelsea are in Europe this season is because of him, if not just because of him. And Ollie Watkins, but was quite unlucky not to get player of the season, actually. Most assists, I think, in the league, second top goal scorer. Did it all season as well, all season long. And I think he's a real good backup for us in the summer. And I put John McGinn in there, and he's probably the one where people go, what the hell's John McGinn doing in there? Well, I wanted to have an Aston Villa player in there because I think they've been one of the best teams. They've got Champions League football, and I don't think they get talked about enough, actually. And I think one of the main reasons they've got Champions League football, I've said they've not got a Aston Villa player in there, they've got probably ignore that. I think they deserve 2 players in there, and one of the big reasons for that is John McGinn. End to end, he's just a heartbeat of that team. And I put this on there before I knew Ali was coming on the pod, and he was his favourite player. I think he's just been outstanding for him. I just wanted to go someone a little bit different, in there as well. So that's why I've gone John McGinn, and that's my team.
Baz, your differences, because you've still got Pickford, White, Saliba, Guardiola, Rice, Palmer, Foden, Watkins, and Haaland. So your differences are Branthwaite centre half, and Heung-min Son.
So the reason why I picked Branthwaite was the rise of how well he's done, and I think the only time where he looked a bit ropey was when he against Haaland, and Haaland just shoved him to the floor and scored. And I think he's looked very comfortable. He can play left side of defence as well, where most defenders don't like playing on the left side of defence. Where I picked 2 centre halves that play on the left side with Saliba and Branthwaite. They're both right-footed, but they play quite well on the left. So for me, he's quite quick. He's strong. He's very good on the ball, and he's the future. I'd say he's probably future England captain. I think I'm going to go for it. I think he's going to be the future, especially with our England defend as well. If they get an attacking minded manager who, when you've got Stones coming out with the ball, and you potentially could get Branthwaite coming out with the ball and playing. So for me, that I was really impressed with Branthwaite. And the reason I picked Son is because not he was my differential for the season, but everyone was writing him off, thinking he's not going to be good because Kane's gone, and he's actually led from the front and gone, right, well, let's some games it looks like he's kind of hid, but that might be the tactics that Ange's playing too gun-ho, and everyone's heads down, and the players that he was playing with as well, not ideal, like Højbjerg in midfield and places like that. But Son, yeah, he gets you them hauls as well in FPL basis. But I just think it was just everything came through him. I was expecting everything to come through Maddison, but it actually came through Son. Everything, when Son got moved to the left, everything came through the left. And when obviously he was down central, everything came through him. So yeah, for me, Son's in there, and obviously all the usual aspects as well. I think Rice, 100 million, definitely lived up to that price tag, 100%. He's made Arsenal very solid. Great to see him as a box-to-box instead of a holder. So that could be a potential option for England going forward. But then England haven't really got a holder in there unless they bring Kobe Mainoo. So they're basically my 2 other differentials, and I was going to tempt to pick another left back, because obviously Guardiola had a great season, great end to the season. If Ndoggy didn't get injured, I probably would have picked him as left back.
Yeah, I agree with that, because I think Udogie started the season the best, and Guardiola had the best end. And I put Van der Ven at left back because he played left back, and I just think he's been excellent this season.
Yeah,
he's been.
It was either Branthwaite or Van der Ven, but I was more impressed with Branthwaite, and obviously for you 2 guys, I picked him because he's English as well.
Thank you very much. Yeah, Van der Ven, I think he's been excellent this season. I think he's been one of the best signings in the Premier League, especially a defender. Yeah, excellent. I played Gabriel. I started him as well alongside White and Saliba at the back for all the obvious reasons. And then I went for Saka, which I was quite surprised by. But yeah, he even eclipsed his attacking returns from last season. He's probably the only one of Arsenal's that group of sort of Jesus, Martinelli, and Saka. One of the only player that actually outperformed his stats from last season and got better. Because they had to bring Havertz and in essence Trossard in, didn't they? Of course, at the end. Yeah, quite surprised by that, but I think Saka's there. And the only player that I wish I had in there that I don't is Watkins. Yeah, I agree with you, Scott. I think he's unlucky not to get player of the season, considering the amount of attacking returns he's got. I nearly played a 2 up front. But yeah, I went for Saka instead. So yeah, I don't think we can have any complaints with those teams of the season. in relation to our predictions. So for podcast listeners, I had City to win the league. I had my boys United to come second. I think it was second or win the FA Cup or something like that. Liverpool third and Arsenal fourth. Then I had Chelsea and Spurs in Europa and Newcastle in the Conference League. So take Villa out and take United out, put Villa in. I pretty much got it right in terms of who qualified for what. So it went pretty well. The only person that put Villa in their European spots was yourself, Baz. The one that you didn't put in was if you needed to put Spurs in instead of Man United. And you needed to put Villa in instead of United as well, Scott. Chelsea, you had them in the Champions League. Arsenal had fifth at the start of the season. Any reflection on those predictions, Scott?
Yeah, I didn't do so well. Yeah, I thought Chelsea without Europe and having an experienced Premier League manager, I thought he would get them all ticking. He did. It took him 31 game weeks, but he got them ticking, and he got his reward by getting sacked. So yeah,
mutual consent.
Yeah, mutual consent. But yeah, just bring in the Leicester City manager. Of course, that's what you do. I think it's shocking. Really. I don't think Chelsea will be in my top four next season. I think if oh my Pochettino, I've totally gone off. If Pochettino had stayed, I think they would probably be in my top four again. But yeah, that's why they're up there. Man United just thought they would build on the season from last season. But what I will say is they've been handled a lot better. Again, when they've got the full team out, it showed last weekend what they can actually do. I don't know, that was one thing.
Yeah, no, I get that. Baz, anyone to have Villa in? I know we've talked about Villa a bit so far, but I just wanted to say I think that's been a great shout from you to have them in the European spots. I mean, nobody saw fourth coming. I mean, not a chance. But to make Europe, I think great shout from you, and hopefully they can have some more good recruitment as well. Relegation, I wanted to ask you about, Baz. You had Wolves, Palace, and Luton. So you had Sheffield United and Burnley to stay up.
Yeah, the reason why I went for them is because Wolves lost their manager. Lopetegui left just before the season started, and Gary O'Neill took charge with like 3 days before the Man U game or something. And I was worried about Palace because a lot of their players were linked with moves away, like Elise and Eze. And I was worried that they weren't going to score a lot of goals. But then Mateta turned up and went, "Don't worry, I'm here. Well, I can do the business. Watch me." And Glasner came in and transformed the team because I thought Hodgson was a negative manager, and with the players that Palace had, then that's the reason why I put them there. My the winners in the top four and Europa League and Conference League are near enough on. I think just Spurs and Man U was the only one that I kind of got wrong. Yes, they were in the wrong selections, but apart from that, I think I've done quite well going forward on that one. I think I was going too obscure with the relegations.
I
wanted Burnley to stay up because obviously Kompany, how he played football and things like that, and don't know how he got the move to Bayern, but we might touch upon that a little bit later. And I'm worried about Palace because, as mentioned, going forward. So yeah.
I get that. And to be fair, I put Bournemouth in with Luton and Sheffield United because I thought wasn't sure how Iraola would do, and he started off terribly, and he probably had 2 games to keep his job, and he did. And now they play brilliant. They're giving him time, and I think I'm really, really impressed. At the start of the season, I was like, "Oh my god, this isn't working." Although I might be right with my relegation prediction, to be honest with you. And then, he really stepped it up. And you and I, Scott, had the same ones in there. Both thought Burnley would do a bit better than they did, and obviously didn't in the end. Predictions for players. So all Haaland top scorer, obviously. I had Martinelli, young player, didn't go very well. That didn't step up at all. Actually, didn't really disappointing. Thought he was going to go take it to the next level. Thought he was a top player. You had Foden, Baz, so obviously good. Gordon as well for you, Scott. Great shout, really well done. Signing of the season. This is where we can have a really good laugh. So Scott, you had Nkunku, who was crocked most of the year.
Yeah.
Baz, you went for Diaby, so good. Yeah, really.
Yeah, he started off well, and then he kind of like was in and out of the team, and Bailey obviously took the heights of how he did and played really well and kept him out of the team. But apart from that, I was starting off and going, yeah, he's looking quite good actually. It's quite a good shout.
And I gambled on Tonali. Never mind. That didn't go so well, did it? And do you know what? He started the season looked really good. I was like, this guy.
He did look good actually.
I was like, this player's quality. Great shout from me. No. Didn't work out. Differentials of the season, Scott, with Trossard. It didn't start off that way, but definitely finished that way. I know we all wanted Son really because he was so lowly owned at the beginning of the season. Baz just got first pick on that one, so it was a pretty easy walking through the door. He was under 10% now. However, Sterling, and he was very underwhelming. Actually, I thought it'd be a differential. He started off the season okay. Actually,
he started great, and then he just came out. He came out of the team. I don't know why he came out of the team, but.
Yeah, didn't end up working out too well, did it? Oh, right. So let's do some quick fire questions to round this off, and then we'll just have a quick chat about England, and then we'll wrap up for the season. Baz, will City be as dominant next season? Oh, hold
yes.
on, I'll get my clock on. All right, just yes. We got that's the quick fire.
No, I can touch upon it. I think
you don't need to if you don't want to.
Well, no, I'll touch on it briefly. I think this season's Premier League win has been their best, because of how many injuries they've had in key areas. And I think when they get them fully fit again, I think they'll just dominate again. Move on.
Yeah, I don't think they have that many injuries, to be fair. But
key players, I mean, De Bruyne was out for a couple of months. Haaland was out for a couple of months.
Yeah, fair, yeah. Alvarez and Foden definitely stepped up and did well. Showed their strength in depth, didn't it? Which was really good. How will Liverpool fare next season, Scott, without Klopp?
It's $1 million question, isn't it? Massive summer for him. They've got to keep Salah. You know, for a new manager coming in, to lose your best player would be hard. They'll give him time. The manager, you know, there seems to be a club that does that. But yeah, just no idea. I think if you say to him League Cup and top four, I think Liverpool fans will snatch their hand off right now for that. But yeah, massive summer recruitment wise for him. So yeah, but they had some players that, you know, Capco finished the season well. So we'll see. Just got to keep Salah for me. Got to keep him.
The guy who delivers on the goals, that's for sure. I want your verdict on Ten Hag before I give my spiel. Baz, your Ten Hag out, I assume?
Yeah, I still can't fathom how he sets up his team. Yeah, he set up his team great in FA Cup. But when he's had his full strength team, he doesn't really set up like that. He tries to play expansive football, but then there's a massive hole in midfield. So for me, he hasn't impressed enough for me. So out.
Scott, in or out?
And you know, I think he deserves time off the FA Cup. Let's not forget they've had a defence fit all season. You know, back in, you know, come out now though. Come out now and say he's staying at the club. Have a summer of good recruitment, and then come back next season with a fully fit team, and give him back of your head. He's got till Christmas, and then if he's not doing the business at Christmas, get rid. But for now, I think he deserves 4 more months.
I think I'm going to get off the fence, and I am. It's got to stay in. 2 trophies, 2 seasons, no fit centre halves all season. When he chose his team that he's got with his signings in there in terms of Martinez, we've not had a left back all year. I think we're only 3 points off 6, for God's sake, with that last minute meltdown at Chelsea off getting that point. Yeah, and I think he's come out fighting. I really rate the way he's acted after the cup final. You know, if you don't want me here, I'll go win trophy somewhere else. Absolutely rate that. You know, come out, not been scared. Yeah, I think another centre half now. Varane's obviously going, another central midfielder, and obviously hopefully a striker as well. Yeah, just need to keep them centre backs fit. And I mean, Liverpool did it as well. They got 69 points that season. We got 60. And Liverpool got 69 points when they had Van Dijk and Alisson out. And obviously, they played Nat Phillips and Reece Williams. Like Alisson played 33 games that season, by the way. They had Nat Phillips and Reece Williams at centre half, which was ridiculous. And they'd moved Fabinho back from holding midfield to centre back. It doesn't work. We did it with Casemiro. It doesn't work. Don't take your best holding midfielder out and put him at centre half. It does not work. Liverpool got 69 points. They won the bloody league the season before that. And we came third. So, yeah, I think he's done enough, definitely, to have another transfer window. And I can see what style he's trying to play, even though it has been terrible at times this season. Let's not shy away from that. Baz, Poch gone, a mistake?
Yes. Yeah, the links with Maresca, who won the championship, Pep's disciple. It's like, right, Poch is a great manager. We all know this. Good with young players. And Chelsea got abundance of young players because that was Ted Bowley's idea to treat them as assets, not players. And you get rid of him. Well, mutual consent, get rid of him, and you're bringing in Maresca, who's doesn't really know the Premier League. Yes, he's been an assistant in the Premier League, but for me, he's finished the season great. He's got his 11, knew exactly how they were playing. And I think the reason why he left on mutual consent was because he would look at Ted Bowley wanted to sell Gallagher and Chalobah, and he's like, no, I'm not having that. I want to keep them pair. And he's like, oh, I'm going there. And went. That's the only thing I can think why is left. And he technically got sacked. Or
second in the form table. Second in the form table to end the season. Like, obvious mistake. Especially when you look at bringing in a championship manager to replace him. Scott, how will the newly promoted teams get on next season? Leicester, Ipswich, and Southampton.
Southampton, I think they'll do probably the best now, in the best situation to do well. Leicester looking like we've just been saying, losing the manager, it's going to be really tough for them. Ipswich, just copy and paste Luton out there. The Luton for next season, unbelievable what they've done back-to-back promotions. Doing back-to-back promotions from the National League and up to League One is one thing. Doing it from the Championship when you're only Ipswich down, by the way, is a completely different thing. So I really hope Ipswich do well. I like watching the season in the Championship, and I like McKenna as a manager. I think he's great. Obviously, cut his teeth at Man United and he's done really, really well. I think the league's tough this season. Like I said, I think 3 weak teams have gone down. So I think when it comes to predictions, I think right now Southampton stay up, the other two go down. As things stand, we need to see who comes in for Leicester.
Interesting. Let's round up then. We've got the Euros to preview. This is the 33-man squad. Scott, over to you with your 7 you drop in, and then also we'll get onto your 11 in a second. And what do you make of England's chances?
Brilliant. I can't remember who I put for 7, so
let me read them out. You said you were going to drop Trafford for the goalkeepers.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to drop a keeper, and he'd be the one for me.
Quansah and Dunk from defence.
Yeah, Quansah, just not got that experience. Done all right for Liverpool this season, but just not enough. And Lewis Dunk, nothing against Lewis Dunk. I don't think Brighton haven't been great this season. And I just think there's more strength elsewhere, especially with centre backs as well.
Wharton and Curtis Jones.
Wharton's probably pretty obvious. He's only just come into the England squad. He's definitely one to keep an eye on, but I wouldn't have thought he'd be going. He only came into Palace, I think, in January, didn't he, from Blackburn? So brilliant. But yeah. And then the other one, who did I say, sorry?
Curtis Jones.
Curtis Jones. Not good enough compared to the other midfield options there. But again, if there was a couple of injuries, wouldn't be gutted if he's in the squad.
And then you had Grealish and Tony as your two sort of attackers.
Yeah, I think this is where we would win the Euros. We're going to win the Euros by our attackers. Grealish just not done enough for me this season at all. He's been in and out. He's been injured. It just doesn't do enough for me. We've got so much strength in those attacking positions. Just not there for me at the moment. And yeah, I don't think we need 3 strikers, out and out strikers. The way we play, our with Kane up there, where we're going to win games is from our deep line midfielders, Bellingham, and to a certain extent Rice as well. But those wingers, those tricky players, and you phone them behind. So for me, you only need one backup striker for Kane, and you can't go away from Watkins for me this season.
No, and to look at your 11 at the moment, you've got, for podcast listeners, Pickford, Walker, Stones, Maguire, and Shaw, Rice and Bellingham, Saka, Foden, Palmer, and Harry Kane. Any flexibility in these, and what was close for you in this 11? What were you thinking? I kind of want to get him in, but I can't, or I'm not sure about him in this place.
Not too many actually. You usually is when we talk about England squads. I think Pickford's Pickford. That centre back partnership has done it. They've not played a lot this season, let's be honest, but they've done it for England. And you've got them in there. Kyle Walker is right back's been a position where you got Trent and that, but I think just Walker's been too good this season, and he's like 37 and he's still outpacing Rashford, and it's like he's going to be such an important player for us. The left back is probably the one. Luke Shaw is probably going to be the one that you'd want to start, but I wouldn't mind Trippier being there if he had to as well. Obviously, he got Nigel in Australia in that massive game. But yeah. But bit of flexibility. If say a Palmer or a Foden gets niggled, I wouldn't mind pushing Jude a bit further forward and bringing Kobe in to sit maybe alongside Declan Rice. But other than that, we've got a lot of options. But for me, that 11's going to be more or less nailed on. I really hope it is, because again, we win the Euros by attacking, not by playing safe.
If Luke Shaw's not fit, who do you take off? Who do you take off that list that you've dropped? Do you keep hold of Quansah or Dunk, or do you keep hold of another midfielder instead? Who do you? Because I'm not sure if Luke's going to make it, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, if out of them two, it'd be Quansah. I think Quansah's got a bit more flexibility. I think he can play sort of left back, right back. I know Lewis Dunk certainly can. That would be it for me. I think that's, and again, I would, yeah.
Barry, your 2 pence on this England team. Anything that you'd change? Anything that you think is our biggest weakness from an outsider's perspective, being a Welshman?
It's the defenders, I think, and also, as I keep mentioning, the manager doesn't help himself by going too defensive and doing negative changes when you're on top of games, and stay on top. Go for the juggler, kill them off. No, what? It just frustrates me, because how good this team, England, could be is frightening. There's so much potential there, and years to come as well, with some of the young talent that's coming through. I'm surprised you didn't get rid of Maddison. How his season ended, he didn't look great at all. I would have got rid of probably Maddison instead of
Grealish. Do you mean?
Yeah, I think Grealish's experience is valuable. Different type of player. I'd have kept Grealish for that reason. And then obviously, if Shaw's not fit, I probably would bring Dunk, because Quansah's flexible. Joe Gomez is flexible, and have another solid centre half, even though potential Walker could play there. And so yeah. But apart from that, I just think the only thing that's kind of stopping England is the manager. To be honest, that I think the team kind of near enough picks itself forward line. I think what Scott's got there is great. I would probably only play one holder. I think Rice is good enough to do that. He's not as good as
yeah, I agree. Jude's not playing as a holding midfield. No, he's playing as a box.
But yeah, for me, Trippier would be left as well, like Scott mentioned. But yeah, I think I think they're gonna bring it home for you guys. I don't like hearing it, but I think it's coming home for you.
I think it's great, because you think we're going to win the Euros. Scott, you think we're winning the Euros, don't you?
I answered someone today and I said we are. I think we are. Yeah.
I think we are. Yeah, I think we've got the best team, and we've also got a manager now who's experienced in big games, and he can't continue to make the same mistakes he made in a couple of the big games by making substitutions too late. I think he knows to make those changes a little bit earlier now in games. I think that's been the big criticism I've had. to influence games with changes, and I think he's just waited a bit too long in those matches. I think he's learned from that. We've got amazing talent. He doesn't need to fit it all in at once. He needs to create the best team. That's the only thing I will say. Is if he has to leave Palmer out, he has to leave Saka out. No problem. I don't think that's an issue. If that means
They
he
can
has to
come on
play,
and change the game, can't they?
exactly. I think if he wants to start Bellingham and Foden, if he wants to start a Conor Gallagher next to Rice, if he wants to start something like that in that team, if that makes the team tick better, I have no problem with it. We have to not get greedy and do the golden generation nonsense of trying to start Gerrard in holding midfield and Lampard on the left of a diamond and all this sort of nonsense just to try and get all of them on the pitch. We need to play the best team. I think we're going to win. I think the best managers do that, I think. Personally.
What also helps is Belgium and France haven't got their number ones, I don't think. I think Magani, I don't know how to pronounce his name, he's potentially a risk. He's a risk. And Courtois hasn't been picked.
He's injured, isn't he, still, I think. No, great. And one final question before I go, one quick fire. Who wins the Champions League final, Madrid or Dortmund? Baz?
Madrid.
Scott?
Dortmund.
Yeah, I'm going Madrid, unfortunately. I'm going to go boring. So, thank you, Scott, for doing different. I really like that. Thank you for doing that.
I'm going to be in Spain as well, so that's a bit risky. I'll take my Dortmund shit.
Oh, God. Standing at yellow wall in some
But to be fair, I'm very close to Barcelona, so maybe that'll go down well.
I think I probably will, actually, be doing that. But what I wanted to round up with saying is thank you ever so much for everyone for listening throughout this entire season. You may see us again with another podcast, especially if England win the Euros. We definitely will do a podcast after that, but we might do a one to dissect the tournament. If not, then the season starts again. I think it's on Friday the 16th of August, on the weekend of the 17th and the 18th. Starts a little bit later because of the Euros, so I'm sure you'll see us in the week probably before then to do a preview podcast. We'll have all the prices, fixtures all come out in the next couple of weeks. You'll see drip feeds of content across everywhere throughout the next 60, 70, 80 days, something like that, until the new season, maybe 80 days till the new season. But yeah, I want to thank every listener and watcher for supporting the pod, because I really enjoy doing it. We've been talking now for nearly 2 hours on this podcast, an hour and 50 minutes, and I've loved every second of it. So thank you to everyone who's still listening at this point. In particular, shouts out to Judith Williams and Guy Ferguson, because you'll be the only two that are left. So thank you very much to you two for still listening at this point. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Don't forget to give us 5 stars wherever you get your podcast from. Subscribe to those channels, and also to give us a like and a follow on our social media platforms. All in Football Pod, All in Football P, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. And the only thing left to say is, Scott, goodbye from you.
Cheers, Alex. Well done.
Thank you very much. And Barry, goodbye from you.
Goodbye.